MMAjunkie Radio with Gorgeous George and Gold. This is what we doing while we do it, baby. We rollin'!
Covering MMA from all over the world, this is the premier stop for all your combat sports needs. MMAjunkie Radio, the only show broadcasting live from the Mandalay Bay Resort and Casino in the fight capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada. The lights are on and the mics are hot. It's time to get your MMA fix, junkies. Take it away, Big John.
Gorgeous George and Goes, are you ready? Junkie Nation, are you ready? Let's get it on.
From the fight capital of the world, inside the beautiful Mandalay Bay Racing Sportsbook, you're listening to the MMAjunkie Radio Show, the only show that matters. I'm your host, Gorgeous George. With me, as always, is the devious and dastardly Goes. To my left, it's the fight analyst, Dan Tom. Back east, producing, Jumbo Josh. What up, cuz?
Who's cuz?
All of you. Plural. I made it plural.
Look at that thing up there. What is that?
I don't know. Looks like a piece of tape.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, there we go. All right.
Anyway.
It's off. Yeah, I think that's all it was. Nothing major. Cool. Today is Thursday, February 7th. It's going to be a fun show. Our co-host for the day, minus a couple minutes, will be Rob Van Dam, former WWE champion. And we'll also be talking to King Mo, former Strikeforce light heavyweight champion. So it's going to be a fun show. We'll talk a little bit about pro wrestling and some of the new stuff that's going on in RVD's career, including some comedy and a documentary that's going to be dropping pretty soon, too. And, of course, with King Mo, even though he's a former Strikeforce light heavyweight champ and a Bellator heavyweight / light heavyweight / moneyweight / he promises he'll be a middleweight. His next fight is actually for the inaugural Ryzen light heavyweight title, and he'll be doing that in April, so I think he's probably just begun his camp for that fight. And I want to know some of the particulars about that. If it's just, hey, similar to Darian Caldwell, we're sending one of our guys, on behalf of Bellator, or is he done with Bellator? I don't know. We haven't talked to Mo in a few months, so we'll catch up with him. But anytime you get a chance to compete in a major organization for a belt, it's pretty special. So we'll talk to both gentlemen. And, of course, we'll sneak in your calls at 877-FIGHT-93. 877-FIGHT-93. A lot of new callers have been rolling through. Some of the old veterans and legends of Junkie Radio for the past 12 years still sneaking in there from time to time. I know the time switch has been a challenge for a lot of you. Many of you are back east, and it's past dinner or family time, who knows what. Some of you are sneaking away. So we know you're at least thinking of us, and that's cool. It was cool to hear Kendra's voice yesterday, for example.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah. So, again, 877-FIGHT-93 is the number to call in if you want to participate in the show. Also, it's 877-344-4893 if you want it that way. Now, yesterday we talked about a few different topics that I wanted to finish up today, and basically daily and MVP talk. This is a fight that's been simmering for the last 2 years, 3 years, something like that. Mm-hmm. And it's finally upon us. It goes down next week in Uncasville, Connecticut. And remember, these two get to settle a UK beef, and the winner advances. The winner advances in the Bellator Welterweight Grand Prix, which we all know, a couple bonuses here. If you match up against Rory McDonald like John Fitch will be doing, you're fighting for the title in that fight and to advance within the tournament. So you could wind up with 2 belts. Rory could wind up with an extra one, or one of the other 7 could wind up with 2 belts, because you would be the Bellator Grand Prix champion like Ryan Bader, and you would also be the welterweight champion, except Ryan Bader didn't defend his along the way because it was a heavyweight Grand Prix and he's a light heavyweight. And how about the $1 million?
I like that.
That 50 Cent threw in that we haven't really talked about much because it was more of a 2018 thing, but, through the holidays, come back with some UFC shows, ESPN era, but now, we're starting to talk Bellator again, and it's $1 million. I've talked to a couple of the guys that competed or won $1 million for PFL, and they are ecstatic. Yes, the wires went through, the the checks cleared. They're good. So, this is a big, big fight for both guys.
We've always seen him involved in boxing, more with Floyd Mayweather and his crew.
Who?
50 Cent.
Oh, okay.
But
Yeah.
now to see him kind of cross over a little bit in MMA, that's pretty interesting. We're seeing more and more of that. We saw, if you go on the front page of MMAjunkie.com, you'll see Chris Pratt. He was talking a little bit Bellator, so it's kind of cool that we're used to seeing all these celebrities show up.
Kevin Hart on
it.
PFL, remember him?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're used to seeing them show up at UFC events, and now we're seeing some of the bigger guys at other events too. I like it.
Let's hear Scott Coker talk about this. This is the $1 million prize that 50 Cent has put up, and after that, we'll hear him. We'll go back to back. Why the fight's not in the UK? Because really, that's where it should go down. But let's hear these, Josh, please, if you don't mind.
This is part of the World Welterweight Grand Prix. The winner advances to the semifinals, and then if they win again, they go advance to the finals, and that's where our friend 50 Cent agreed to put up $1 million. So there'll be $1 million prize money on top of what they already get paid for the winner of this Grand Prix tournament, which will be sometime in September. So this is an elimination match, and the winner moves forward, and the winner will be out of the tournament.
Okay, key there. I didn't even realize there's also a little nugget there. This thing will wind up next September, which is kind of like a 1.5-year tournament if you think about it.
Yeah.
Wish they would have expedited it a little quicker, but I can't argue with the names. This is a fun one. We had Young Guns and Neiman Gracie and Ed Ruth, for example, and then we have a beef that's going to get squashed. We have a champion that's going to defend. So I can't hate too much, but I would like for it to go I think it could go a little quicker. Whatever. But there you have it. $1 million. He reassures it, and these checks are clearing. These wires are going through. And I wonder if this is going to be maybe not the norm, but just more common in these tournament-type formats. Or like the PFL calls it.
The $1 million?
Playoffs, yeah. Or just these big numbers,
Oh. Yeah, big numbers, I would imagine, because it's got to be the biggest thing the promotion has going on right now, right? With the heavyweight one wrapping up. It seems like anytime they get a lot of publicity, it's because of some sort of tournament that's been going on. So I think that's their bread and butter, and I think that does deserve to be the highest bill as far as getting paid.
Let's just say I have advertising money and I represent Ford or something like that. If I said Ford will pledge $1 million, but for the next 1.5 years, that's going to get dropped. It's going to get shared on social media. It'll get dropped on every Bellator broadcast, or at least relevant to the Grand Prix. That might not be a bad way to spend $1 million for those coming. 50 Cent's just kind of like his own brand, I guess. But along the way, why wouldn't a sponsor do that? I think that money could go far. Maybe I'm wrong.
Do we know how much money gets thrown at Super Bowl halftime or Super Bowl now?
Well, they're probably up to about 3 or 4 million
for like 30 seconds.
For 60 seconds.
60 seconds.
Yeah, but like probably 2.5 million for 30 seconds. So it's never double. You get the break by going the whole minute.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say the last time that I heard that was like 3-4 years ago, and they were already in the 3 million range. So I imagine they've graduated to. I mean, it's a quick Google search.
I got to imagine companies have spent money on dumber things. That's awesome.
So according to CNBC, the cost of a 30-second ad during the Super Bowl was $5.25 million.
God damn.
Are you kidding me?
No, he's not. I knew it. I knew we were up there.
Okay, Rob hasn't heard
one of my
so let's see what he thinks it would be, that number.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. Well, he's in the
How you doing,
entertainment world. Want to
Did I get here
welcome.
at perfect time.
What's
Yeah.
up, RVD? How you doing?
Good, man. Oh, if this is perfect, then I'm glad I wasn't here earlier. Okay. Good. How are you?
All right, my man. Listen, we're sidetracking here for just a second, but do you want to guess? Take a wild guess. Hopefully, you didn't do the same Google search sometime in the last week or so. How much a 60-second spot cost for the Super Bowl?
I'm gonna say 4.2 million.
That's
Better
not a
guess
bad
than
guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's 5.5 million they're up to for 60
Wow.
seconds.
That's
So when you see
incredible.
Doritos, FedEx, Chevy, that's what they're doing. That's why they're putting so much into their commercials, because they want to get something out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And, the exposure in front of 50 million live viewing audience is tremendous.
You guys should have had a MMA junkie commercial.
That would bankrupt the company.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. Yeah, crazy. All right,
That's a lot of money.
let's do just a quick second one, and then we'll talk to Rob here. Why the fight is not taking place in the UK, Josh, please. Number 2.
Yeah, we, the fight is a fight that's going to be part of the DAZN circuit in the U.S. And I came to London 4 or 5 months ago, and I asked James Rushton from DAZN, I said, we really like to do this fight in the UK, and we'd like to do it in London. We think it makes a lot of sense for a lot of different reasons. He said, okay, you can go ahead and do it. We'd prefer to be in the United States, but we understand, so we'll go ahead and do it. And so for about 48 hours, we were here trying to secure the venue. We just couldn't secure the venue for the time slot that we needed to do it this month. So everything was booked here. The O2, the SSC Wembley, everything was booked. So we just couldn't lock down a venue to make it happen. So instead of taking it to an outer city, we said, okay, we're just going to take it back to the United States and do it there. And that was a decision.
Did it have to happen in London? Couldn't it have happened? Daly's from Nottingham. I know MVP's from London, but they're in Newcastle. Did they want a big metropolis? Is that what they wanted?
I would imagine
because
so,
it's not like
that's the
Uncasville.
biggest fight they can. That's one of the biggest fights they can do in all of Bellator, let alone using UK fighters. So yeah, I could see that, but I just don't see how you can go from that to Uncasville.
Yeah. All right. So we'll obviously be talking a little bit of Bellator throughout the show, but I want to focus on our co-host for the day, former WWE champion, also a TNA and ECW champion, the great Rob Van Dam, a.k.a. RVD. What's up, RVD?
What's up, dude?
Good to have you back, man.
Thanks, man. I'm local now.
Yeah. When'd you make that move?
Just recently, just in the last couple of weeks.
Okay.
I've been on my way here since 2005, and I've been telling my friends here the whole time. And I had a place I rented it out, a place that I bought like in 2005, and I just always wanted to end up here. And then through the means of divorce and getting rid of the co-owned properties and such like that, offered me the opportunity to relocate to Las Vegas. So I'm super stoked. And sold that house also that I rented out, but got
starting fresh.
Love it. Yeah, with my girlfriend Katie Forbes. She's awesome. If you don't know who she is, look her up on the internet. You'll love her too. Yeah, very happy.
But, awesome, man! Congratulations on. I'm not the divorce. I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah, no, dude.
Just,
that was a
you
long
seem happy.
time.
Congratulations on turning the page. There you go.
We could have saved a lot of trouble if we would have done that in like 2008, 2010 at the latest. Yeah, dragged on and on. For what turns out to be the wrong reasons.
This is the only nosy question I'll have. Okay.
Yeah.
Were you two able to shake it out, or did the attorneys make a lot of money off you two?
The attorneys.
Oh, okay.
And that was all her though.
Okay.
I was telling all my friends like, no, we're gonna remain friends through this and stuff. Like I'm not gonna be like everybody else. And then all of a sudden she hit me with this vicious attack that said like I made so much more money and that it was just based on a whole bunch of stuff that was like. None of that's true, but all I can do is pay another lawyer to counter that and say that it's not true. And for what? None of it matters unless you go in front of the judge. This is all just stuff for you to try to work out some agreement short of that. So it was a big pain, and I wouldn't recommend it, but I would if you're in a situation, because I mean, as you've heard, I can't take credit for this, but turns out to be true. Divorce is expensive because it is worth it.
Okay.
I would have hung in there and been complacent just out of loyalty, but looking back, life wasn't meant to be like that. I'm so happy now that it was worth whatever.
Well, welcome to Vegas.
Thanks, dude.
And it'll be great to have you here. And of course, when we talked, you told me you got some exciting news to talk about, a documentary that's dropping, and so I started looking into that. The comedy world.
Yes, sir.
All right. Yeah. A lot of entertainers and athletes are doing this. Someone close to our sport, mixed martial arts, Brendan Schaub, he's got a successful podcast, fought in the UFC's heavyweight division, and he's been doing a little bit of touring, and I've been seeing that he's doing all right.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of who else it was. Somebody mentioned the other day, like somebody.
Tyron Woodley's done a little bit of it, right?
Tyron Woodley, the UFC welterweight champion.
He's rapping too now.
Yeah. So Frank Mir did a set here. I saw.
That is what I heard. Yeah. That's what someone was telling me.
Yeah.
I heard that he did good.
He did good. I was there,
cool.
And he did good for that being his debut. Probably his only time. He said he was scared more than even when he had to fight Brock and all those guys.
That's so funny.
But I thought he did well. I really did.
Well, public speaking is the biggest fear in America, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it makes sense.
Yeah, dude, I'm seriously like this comfortable when I'm on stage, but I haven't always been. But I've been doing it for a long time.
You've been on big stages though.
Well, that's true.
Where you have to be comfortable,
Even like Booker T was like, man, I could never do that. I'm like, dude, you get in front of 70,000 people in your underwear. And anyway, what I've learned is anytime, like if there's if you feel like there's a pause or something, all you do is say, give yourselves a big round of applause. And boom. That's all it takes, dude. It's easy.
I'm telling you, when I've watched pro wrestling, because I've gone in spurts, but when I've watched it, I feel for some of the athletes that have gone out there, men and women, and have tried to connect with the crowd. And then, those chants like, this is boring, or boo, or bring out the next guy or gal. And I'm like, oh, man, do you guys have to give it to them that bad? But some of them get better at it and become monsters on the mic. Some of them are instant hits. Oh, I just feel for them because I'm thinking, if I were to do that, I don't know that I could handle it, man. I'd probably just drop the mic and go cry somewhere. But
I've never bombed. I never even get heckled. And I tell actual jokes, not like road stories, which a lot of fans expect because the precedent has been set, I guess, by Mick Foley, Jake the Snake. Yeah. I saw Piper do it once, and it's a lot of road stories, and but they're hanging on to what I have to say, So it's not, it shouldn't be the other way around, at least, not in my mind. So that makes it very comfortable. And plus, I'm hilarious, by the way. Yeah. But I'm actually talking to a few different venues right now about doing something more on a regular basis.
Like a host? Or you actually want to do the headliner and everything?
Yeah,
okay.
Like a residency deal. We were talking, nice. Yeah, I've been talking to a few different venues. And I did something, I guess it was a couple months ago at Hooters. And it was like a weekend that was supposed to be like let's take a look at it or whatever. And it was a lot of fun. And since then, they've, they're interested in having me back. But there's a couple other things that sound like it might be, a better choice. So just considering some things. I'm not in a hurry to do anything. I never am. With very few exceptions, like throughout the span of most of my career. At least the last 20 years or so, I'm really not looking for anything. I just kind of consider options, And of course, when I started out with wrestling, I wanted to be in the bigger group and get better. But I'm saying for, since like 2006, that might not be 20 years ago, I'm doing math, but probably it was around, at least for sure since then, it's like, I'm not really trying to do anything. People will say, hey, how's this going? Or, I know you're trying to do this. I'm like, no, I'm not. I just, I skim through offers. And some of them appear legit. Many of them don't. I don't respond to them because they seem like they're just a fan that somehow got my contact info, and I don't want them to know what I work for and stuff like that. So I don't even respond to them, But yeah, I ain't trying to be busy. I don't. That's something that even if you're grown up to respect, like being busy, and man, that guy's got a lot of drive, and I respect that. That's not me though. I'm don't want to do anything.
Well, let me ask you this. We get a lot of pro wrestlers that come on here and want to try mixed martial arts and vice versa.
Yeah.
And they share similarities in some of the stuff that goes on there. But we've also heard in comedy sometimes, like, comedians will say, depending on where you want to go with it, if you want to be big time, you got to go through that rough patch of actually bombing and doing those type of things to grow. Can you kind of paint a picture between pro wrestling and comedy? Because I've heard a few pro wrestlers say that as well. Like, you kind of got to bomb on that mic first to kind of know how to react and play off the crowd. Same things with comedy and pro wrestling? Have you seen any?
I think that, like, all of show business has a lot of similarities. When I talk to Tom Garland, he's my manager that books some of this stuff. Whenever he's explaining something, I go, dude, I know what it's like dealing with the talent and what they want and the expectations of the people that buy shows or whatever. It's all the same, I've always been an exception to everything, but I was already RVD before I started doing comedy, so I'm already a superstar, so that's a big exception, Like, I don't have to bomb to realize. I watch other guys bomb, and I go up there and make fun of them, you know what I mean?
Gotcha.
Like, do they not notice that they never, ever get a laugh? Like, some of the same guys I would see on my first, like, half a dozen shows, I was like, how do they not realize, like, that nobody's connecting with them at all, and they keep doing the same stuff every night? And, like, how are they enjoying that, But anyway, no, I've and a lot of the fans that come to see me, a lot of times they're wrestling fans, but I don't like doing it at a wrestling venue in the ring or something like that. I like people that have come out, to laugh at stage on.
Is there a reason for that, for the separation from the pro wrestling, or?
Yeah, because it's those guys would rather have me just tell them wrestling stories.
Okay.
You know, yeah, they're not. You know, they some wrestling fans that might come out to an RVD stand-up comedy show might not ever go out to another stand-up comedy show, so they might just be sitting there holding their programs, waiting for me to sign them afterwards, and just saying, "God, I wish this would get over." You know, I don't know.
I got you. Okay. Because I noticed Joe Rogan was good at when he would do, you know, because he's the color commentator, so he's going to all the pay-per-views, and then the night before he does a show. And he does get his stuff out there, but he will tie in some MMA into his jokes because he knows it's a pro MMA crowd. And
Sure.
now, as the podcast grew, I don't know because I haven't seen him lately, but I imagine he could stand alone, you know, because he's also doing way less shows. But
believe it or not, I do an hour and 15, hour and 20 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh.
And not even
Workhorse.
intentionally. It's just that a lot of times I have this same issue where they don't want to give me the light. Like they think it's going to be disrespectful or something. And even at the Hooters gig, my manager, you know, said to do 45 minutes. And I'm up there and I just kept thinking, God, it's so long. You know, finally I'm like, dude, you know, how long has it been? Like I'm, you know, I'm tired, you know. And then it was an hour and 15, hour and 13 maybe, and then I went home at Hooters. But I, you know, I've been doing it for a long time, so I have. Anytime I go up there, there's always a lot of jokes that I didn't tell that I'll try to throw them in next time. And I'm always, and once I do it, because I don't do it that often, when I do it, it gets my creative juices flowing, you know. And then I like using my brain, and I'm just like all day like thinking of new stuff or how to twist things or whatever. And I like that. I like being smart and using my brain, and that's something that pulls me away from wrestling and towards other things like this.
how much time? How long do you have material for? Could you go 2 hours?
I don't think so.
So you're programmed for about an hour, 15, hour, 20 max?
I'd say I can do an hour and a half.
But that's not your sweet spot? You prefer 45 minutes or an hour? Like,
Yeah,
how's that work?
45 minutes or an hour is better. Well, I have some of my jokes that aren't necessarily my favorites, or I'll say, or sometimes like what I did last time, I didn't like work out a set. I had like so many jokes. I said, let me just go up there and kind of see where it's going to go. Like I knew at the beginning I was going to kind of talk about me doing comedy, you know, and pointing that out. The proverbial elephant in the room, and then from there though, you know, I would just say, what else do I got? Oh, let's talk about. Oh, hey, I had one of these voice activated cars. Have you heard about that? Like, I thought that the idea, you know, was great until I realized it was just ran by the sound of my wife nagging from the passenger seat. Dude, I have a really dry sense of humor, cotton mouth dry. Some people say, you know. My comedy's been referred to as undetectable. You know,
what are the goals?
I refuse to conform. It's all about me just being me.
That's what I like. And see, that's where I'm trying to figure out, because I'm thinking like if you go back maybe 5-6 years ago, goals of comedy, they're kind of different now, right? Because people always aspire to have those big shows, and back then I think it used to be like HBO. Now it seems like Netflix having a special on there is really big. Residencies. You're pretty close to getting a residency already. So, like, what's kind of like the order that you want to do, and what's the highest goal you want to achieve?
I really have, like, no goals whatsoever. I kind of go with the flow, you know, which probably isn't a big surprise. That's what I do everything by. Yeah. I really do, you know, and, like, I have a lot of different agents or people out there, you know, in different fields that are feelers for me, they're the hustlers. I'm not. You know, a lot of times it takes several calls on important stuff before I'm like, oh, that's right. Yeah, I was supposed to call them back. It was, you know, it could be like something really important about anything. But I mostly have for the last 10 years or so been focusing on working less, doing less and making it mean more. And, you know, I used to wrestle 240 days a year, and now it's like 10 to 12 days a year, and that works great. I love it so much, and it's on the business end. You know, I wouldn't be able to do that except for it's so rare that I do it, and because I'm the whole effing show, I'm priced accordingly, not to move off the market, not to fly off the shelves every weekend, but, you know, just to be able to cater to the few elite promoters that can, you know, afford my services, and that's usually overseas, not always, but lately, like in the last 6 months, we're talking Australia and Italy, the UK.
Yeah, you were all over
Scotland,
Australia. I saw that.
Yeah, well, that's doing something like that, like once a month or less. That's great for me as opposed to being on the road every single day and on the crappy side of business as well. I like being a bigger fish, in a smaller pond. I'm a legend. I'd never know it if I just stayed with WWE. They would never tell me that.
All right, go ahead, Dan.
Oh, I had a question. You said a couple things like, go with the flow and talking about your set time, which might surprise some people. But I got to imagine that's one of the things when you were saying that, I'll use my own terms. I wasn't sure what you said, but kind of if you're an artist in one way or a performer in one way, you're kind of a performer in many. I got to imagine the improv, right, is one of the more translatable skills from pro wrestling, the thinking on your feet physically and literally and bringing that. Is that something you're finding that translates well for you?
So I don't do improv like by definition.
Right,
Improv is a different kind of comedy, which I like. I enjoy it. John Hennigan / Impact / MMAjunkie / Morrison. He does improv, and I've gone there to see him.
For sure.
And it's intriguing to me, but I don't know what the rules are.
Yeah.
I watch them. You never say no. You go with it. I've
Right.
heard those, but yeah, part of it you have to be able to think on your feet, I would think, but I've been compared to like Mitch Hedberg, which I love. I was really
I could see that
when I first saw him. Yeah. And then he was already dead when someone first turned him on to me, but I was like, oh, dude, I love his vibe. We would have been bros for sure.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
No, I totally get that, and yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah, definitely a different distinction for people that don't know. But yeah, I don't imagine though. Again, you're able to kind of navigate it. Maybe is a better word when you're up there for what how you want to attack it. Whether like you said, it's a joke or.
And then a lot of times, like you'll say something, and then you'll just recall a joke from earlier just because it fits, and then it adds depth to the whole thing, and that's part of what's fun about it, and that I enjoy doing.
Awesome,
Yeah.
awesome.
All right, we got Rob Van Dam here in studio. We're going to talk about Headstrong when we come back. It's a documentary featuring Rob and his comedy career, and it drops on February 19th. It'll be available on iTunes, Vudu, Spotify. Check it out. We'll talk more about that when we come back. It's MMA Junkie Radio.
kicked off the set of The Fast and the Furious for being too loud and too good-looking. Once again, here's gorgeous George and Goes.
Fantasy Sports Radio is getting you ready for the upcoming fantasy baseball season and following the action in the world of sports. From Major League Baseball to the NBA, PGA, and more. Hear information to help you benefit no matter how you're invested on Sirius 210, XM87, and streaming on your phone and at home on SiriusXM connected devices and speakers. Don't forget, at the top of the hour, we'll have King Mo, former Strikeforce light heavyweight champion. Right now we're joined, as our co-host for the day is former WWE champion, former TNA ECW champion, Rob Van Dam. Rob, let's talk about Headstrong.
Yes.
So I blew it. It's iTunes, Google Play, and Vudu, and
also Amazon.
And Amazon. All right.
Yeah.
And it drops in a couple weeks, February 19th.
Available right now on iTunes for a pre-order.
There you go.
Boom.
And it's going to be basically following your comedy career, correct?
Yeah, it does.
Or is it dive into personal life?
Yeah,
or?
It really does.
Okay.
Unexpectedly. So this was a comedy tour. We brought the camera on. Let's film the road trip. And I showed up with some lasting symptoms from a concussion that I had from a match that happened like 3 nights before or something. And it was like, I don't know if I want to tell anybody or not at first, maybe I'll. But then I'm asking, people that I go to trust, and they're saying, don't do it. You're not going to, the lights will be bad. You're not supposed to stimulate your brain. Supposed to rest, whatever. And of course, I'm like, well, I'll be better tomorrow. And I just went ahead with it. And then a few days into it, it got to the point where it's like, we should film, what I'm saying behind people's backs, because I'm meeting fans, filming it. Like, they're telling me, like, hey, man, you're the great man. I grew up watching you. Boom, boom, boom. Hey, thanks. I'm smiling, taking a photo. And then I'm looking at the camera, and I'm like, whoa, like, this guy, like, is blurry to me and stuff like that. And so it ended up being a thing that carried on, and then it ended up involving my personal life, because then it became about me being a wrestler. We throw in all the everything background, and it became something that actually took like 2 years for us to put together.
That was my next question.
Yeah.
So this is over 2 years.
Yeah, I'm so excited. People are gonna love it.
When did it start and when did it end?
November 16th, and I'm not even. We've been working on it so long. I still don't believe it's done until people start watching it. Gotcha. I'm afraid we're gonna hit the editing room tonight and make it even better. But each time though, you go over and you make it better and better, and it's something I'm super proud of. Like people that hear me do interviews, outside of scripted pro wrestling shows, whatever they pick up from me there, whether it's they like my zenful approach to life, whatever, that's the guy that you get like up and close in a way like never before, like in my house, in my relationship, Katie's in it. And a lot happens. Like we go to a wrestling convention because we had a show in Atlantic City that was canceled. And we said, let's go to the big event. And so every wrestler that was there is on my documentary, so that's like really cool, because Bobby Heenan's on there, who has since passed away.
Course, yeah.
And I'm real proud that I have Bruno Sammartino's last public appearance.
Oh,
and
wow.
And it's a really cool thing too, because like he had a huge line, and I didn't want to bother him. I was, hey Bruno, and get a photo, and I'm like trying to walk away because I didn't want to be rude to everybody, and I didn't know, I probably didn't hear him say it at the time, but I've seen it in the movie so many times when I'm trying to walk away, and he says, hey, he goes, Rob Van Dam, he goes, hey Rob Van Dam, let me tell you, he goes, I've seen you in the ring many times, you're pretty damn great. And like coming from Bruno, I'm like, man, I'm glad I have that on my movie, for sure.
That is very cool.
A lot happens.
So it sounds like there's highs and lows,
yeah, exactly.
And this thing gets really raw.
It's been described as a roller coaster by some of my friends who've seen it. And, but everyone who has seen it so far, though, loves it. And they've all said how inspiring it is to see how I get through obstacles of life, and
was it tough to see as you were editing and revisiting it, or was it therapeutic?
There's only one part that tears me up, and it's because Katie cries in it, and when I see that, I can't help but go, a little bit. It's but it is emotional, and I'm I'm always so overly honest, like to a flaw. Anybody that doesn't know that about me, I'm always extremely candid, and I always talk about things that I think are appropriate, even if other people don't. And so from that perspective, it makes the whole nature of it controversial. But, I don't mind talking about how, shortly before we filmed this, like I'd gone through like a hell of a trifecta in life because I got divorced, which I saw as a failure at the time. I didn't want it. And then all I had was my dog. My dog died, and then my dad died. So bam, bam. And during the time that follows, instead of talking about, I'm filming it here, but I also go on stage and I talk about that in the movie. Like I would go on stage during that time and I was drinking a lot, and I'd tell the people, I gotta warn you, I started drinking early before tonight's show. I started drinking in February of last year, so just roll with it. It's real life.
All right.
How many hours and how many days are the cameras with you?
Usually it was the days were going by so quick because we had so much travel that it would be like in between leaving the hotel room in the morning, and then we'd film a little bit on the car. Sometimes we'd film if we're in Cracker Barrel or Denny's or a gas station. We'd film from when we get to the building, and I'm stretching or warming up, even though I'm just doing comedy. But those are just my daily things that I'm getting done there. And then afterwards, my thoughts afterwards. A lot of it's hotel time or sleep time in the car, but pretty much everything in between. We had the camera on there, and we tell a hell of a story here.
Did you ever have a scenario where the cameras weren't there, and you said, "Fuck, I wish they were here for that"? Is there anything?
Probably so. There was a lot of stuff that I was looking for that I thought the camera was there for, and it wasn't. And I'm like, "What? We didn't film that?" And yeah, that happens.
Wow. Well, I'll tell you what, man. I don't know if this is bad of me or what, but when they do say shut the camera off because it's getting too real, that's when I want to see it the most, you know. So I respect whoever's doing it, their privacy, but I can't lie. There are times where I guess, I don't know, maybe I'm more of a curious George than a gorgeous George, but you're saying that you're a pretty open book in
too much. I've always been accused of that, which just like I believe that we're living tomorrow's history, so let's make sure they get it right. You know what I mean? Like I'm the most honest guy I know. I do lie to my my GPS, like my Waze. If I'm driving and it says, "Are you the passenger or driver?" Then I'll say I'm passenger. But it lies to me all the time. Like it'll always say, "Oh, it's 2.8 miles. Hit select." And as soon as I do, it's like 3.5 miles.
Wait, why do you lie to it? Is this a bit, or I've never used that app? So
no, that is a bit. But honestly, but I don't lie though, and I don't. I am the most honest guy I know. You know what I mean? But. For better or worse, sometimes my girlfriend wishes I wouldn't talk so openly about certain things, and I've had other people with me like that. But that's going to reflect in this documentary because, true is true.
All right, so we can jump around some topics here that we've covered.
Cool.
You're good with it, right?
Anything.
All right, Dan, you wanted to
backtrack
a little?
Yeah, definitely. I don't even know so much backtrack, kind of talking about your journey here, and I'm already in. Don't get me wrong. I was aware of RVD. One of my best buds.
Nobody knows this stuff. That's
a fan of comedy and this and that. But more importantly, I've had people to show know. I've had concussion issues, and that have I've had a bunch of them that I probably didn't know about. But one in particular that really did a number. It kind of shaped and changed my own journey, and I'm already in. I want to see what it did with your journey, and that stuff's is a very topic that's close to my heart. So I appreciate anybody that has the honesty and platform like you do to be able to share that. That's huge.
Talking about that is like a no-no in the industry now.
Yes.
And I've had hundreds throughout my career, but this one had symptoms that lasted longer than the other ones. Usually it's just overnight or something and it goes away.
Right.
And then and then there's been like rumors on the internet, like somebody took a couple lines out of some of my divorce papers and then printed them out of context, and then people run with that, and then they read it the way that they want to, and there's so many things like that.
What kind of a fucking monster does that?
I don't know. Someone that's
damn, that's an evil person.
Prospectively, yeah. I mean, if that's all you know about the person, then that's a horrible, horrible person, you know. But, you know, they might have some remaining some good qualities. We don't know them, but to do that is pretty low, right? We can agree on that.
Yeah.
I don't like, And then, and so, you know, being the guy that's talked about, the more famous you are, the more people are going to talk about you.
Right.
The more people talk about you, the more likely they're not all going to have it right. You know, I'm always reading stuff that, like, Katie will be like, oh, look at that. And I'm like, relax, you know, like, because it lowers me to respond to a lot of it. You know what I mean? Right. But with the documentary, it pretty much answers every question that I've heard for like the last 2 years from the fans, and not answering with words, but by showing you. Like, you get to go through my day, see how cool it is being RVD, and so it's a really good experience. Another one of those things that's also thrown out there that I've heard, somebody like there was some comment about the divorce. I think it was something that I had printed, something nasty about my ex, but somebody commented, a fan, and said, "Ha, this from a guy who divorces his wife when she has cancer." And then I've also heard other things talk about, like, that Katie ruined our relationship or something. You know, first off, the divorce was 100% her. I kicked and screamed and fought it till the very end. Now I'm glad that it did go that way, like I said. But she had cancer in like 2008 and got rid of it. It hasn't been there since, but everybody will always think of her in that way because that's when she made the media, the news, you know. And then also we were separated in December of 2015, and I didn't even meet Katie until April of 2016, you know. But in general, you know, I don't get on the internet right away, but those are some examples of how, like, I'm glad that when people watch this movie, they're going to know me a lot better. They're going to know me a lot more than they ever thought they would.
Whose idea was it?
Well, it was Tom Garland, who's my comedy manager.
Okay.
He's the guy that books the tours. He does comedy around here, like, every night somewhere, and that's who, you know, I'm talking about doing a regular thing with, you know, through him. And he just said, hey, I got this guy, you know, and he can bring the camera and film it, you know, we can edit it, make a like a documentary of the road trip, and that's totally all we thought it was going to be, a little something maybe to promote the stand-up tours, and that ends up being a smaller part of it than we thought it would be.
I saw you answer somebody on Twitter in regards to, and I'm not in any way near the movie business, even though I'm an LA guy. Figured I'd at least know this, but so, you know, you said it's available on iTunes, Vudu, Google Play, but somebody asked you about possible theaters or festivals or whatever they're called. How does that work? Is it depending on how it's received, or is it only headed towards the internet?
No, eventually it will be like on all platforms. What I learned through this whole process is on the business end, like it's kind of backwards than you would think as a fan. You know, when I went and saw the screener the first time for the resurrection of Jake the Snake Roberts, I was wondering, like, why isn't he talking about Netflix at all, you know, DDP? And afterwards I asked him, is this going to be on Netflix? And he said, eventually it will. He said, we want to push it out on iTunes first. And on the business end, as a producer, like, once the iTunes and Google Play, Amazon, Vudu, these are what's called transactional platforms, which means each time somebody buys it or rents it, you're doing business, you know, ching, 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 ching.
Yeah.
Once it gets to, like, the other part of Amazon and, like, Netflix, then it's a subscription service where people watch it as much as they want without paying because they're already subscribers.
Right.
So Netflix will just buy it from you, pay you one time, and then you're pretty much done with business with them. So that's why, like, if it's thank you. That's why if you have something that you think maybe your fan base would support, on the transactionals, then it's better. It depends on what you want, though. Some people would rather have a million people watch their product and they don't care if they make money on it, or some people are the opposite. But that's the deal behind that, though. Transactional and subscriptional. And eventually, and DVD is also a third platform, and, you know, eventually it'll be on all that.
Does something like this have more success when there are, you know, when somebody opens up their life, when there are the lows? Or can it just be a highlight deal, you know? Or
well, it depends on what people will buy, you know. I mean, since you ask, The first edit of this movie that Joe Clark, the director, the first edit that he gave me was so far off from what I wanted because it had all the lows, and I felt like it made it seem like my life was depressing. Like I didn't realize like I was happy and like a happy guy that doesn't know that he's dying or something. It came out feeling like that, and I was like, oh my God. And he was like, no, I caught all that. I said, okay, you caught all that, but you cut out all this, and you took this out of context, and you moved this around, and it was so much that we had a falling out, and that's part of also why it took 2 years.
Oh, wow.
We had a falling out, and it took a while for us to get back together on the same page, and then he and I, re-edited it together from the beginning all the way to the end. And, he was really, being a movie director, he's really more stuck on the that part of the story arc, that he thinks really sells. He thinks people can relate to you more the lower you are.
I always wonder, once they get the prize, which is the celeb, if they, twist it into that way, we're going to go through a roller coaster, hit some downs, and finish on a high.
I did not want that scene.
Like, I saw that Jake Roberts one as well with DDP, and I was like, damn, Scott Hall.
That was amazing.
But, obviously, I watched it for Jake the Snake, and to see him kind of transform, I was like, all right, I was really liking that ending. But I always wonder if it becomes like Vulture Land, with when they have the ability to follow you, or there's a contract that says this is what we're doing.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, some reality shows are more like that, where they follow them regardless of whether they say shut the camera off or not. Usually on a documentary, you've got more control. But I mean, it is important that people relate to you, And
that's true.
Of course they can. On this one, you're gonna feel like you were with me when I'm walking around Times Square or Venice Beach. And people are saying, RVD, oh my God, you're so cool, bro. I get a lot of love everywhere I go. And I really wanted to share that even from the beginning before I knew about the lows that were going to be included.
All right, you saying it's break time?
Break time.
All right, we got to do that. Let's take our break.
We're going to break dance?
Yeah, no, I can't. It's MMA Junkie Radio on Fight Nation Channel 93. We have Rob Van Dam in the house. Stay close. We'll be right back.
Rob Van Dam going from parallel to perpendicular midair for the 5-star front flag. However, what the hell? The win just shit, I love it, just saw it. They did just pick the winner and new ECW champion, Rob Van Dam.
I get paid to say things in this cool voice, and they get paid to be lame. Here are Gorgeous George and Goes.
Good find there, Josh. So far we've heard the moments in which Rob has had success in WWE, and that was the, what was that, the ECW?
Indeed.
Yeah, and I was reading up on it. You're the only guy to ever hold, there was 3 major belts. I guess that included TNA. So it's quite a career you've had.
TNA,
you've been around everywhere and all the different memorable matches you've had.
I've had well, this is a fact as far as I know. I've read this, but most of the information I get from fans, I've had 23 to 27 recognized world championships from what I've read, and from that makes me the most decorated former world champion.
Oh,
What
wow.
I've read. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's cool.
Yeah, very cool. You still got all your belts?
No, you don't get to keep them. I have
No.
one, which I just kept, but not by any choice of the companies. It was just when they replaced the ECW TV belt way back in the day, because it was an old-fashioned one that I got when I beat Bam Bam Bigelow. And I liked the history of it, the way it looked. They replaced all the belts with a Jamar brand, which was an updated, new-looking belt. But they gave me the TV title, but I kept just leaving it at home. And Taz was kind of behind that, and he kept every week he'd say, "Brother, why didn't you bring the new TV title?" And I'd say, "Oh, I forgot it again. I'm sorry." And I just kept saying that, and then eventually, I think I told him because you made the TV title silver. And you made that FTW title, which you made up, gold. That's why I don't. So they made it gold. And then I said, okay, I guess I'll switch. And then I started wearing the new ECW TV J-Mart belt. And then I just kept forgetting to bring the other one. I'm sorry, I forgot to bring it back. So that's the only belt I have, other than Lifetime Achievement belt from my original kickboxing instructor, Kit Likens, who's also, you see him on the movie. You'll meet him.
Very cool. All right.
There you go.
All right, so we are going to be up against the clock here in terms of just getting to the top of the hour.
Where's this Mo at?
Well, Mo's not in person. He'll be calling in.
Oh, okay.
So I tried sending him a text just to give him a quick reminder.
Oh, right on.
We're hoping to catch up with him in about 3 minutes or so. But if you, again, there will be some pockets. If you want to call in, it's 877-FIGHT-93 or, much easier, 877. Well, no, that's the easy one. What am I thinking of?
Yeah.
877-344-4893 is the other way.
Say it again. Someone was talking over it.
877-344-4893. Or the easy way is 877-FIGHT-93. Call in, chat with RVD, or chat with us. Don't forget, UFC 234 is this weekend, and we're running out of time. Dan's got he's going to be off tomorrow, so it's your last chance to pick his brain as well. He's our fight analyst, and he's already done a lot of his breakdowns for this week. So you can ask him a question, too, in regards to Kelvin Gastelum, Robert Whittaker, Anderson Silva, Israel Adesanya. I think we've had 3 embeddeds drop already, and I got caught up with 2 of them, so I'm really, really getting pumped up for that big pay-per-view out in Australia, where Kelvin Gastelum will challenge Robert Whittaker for the UFC middleweight title. All right, so stay close. We'll be back in about 60 seconds. It's MMA Junkie Radio on Fight Nation, Channel 93.
I've known for a long time you would one day hold, Rob Van Dam, I hereby present you with the new ECW World Heavyweight Championship.
They were abducted by aliens and instantly returned for raiding all their snacks. They are Gorgeous George and Goes. And this is MMA Junkie Radio.
Rob, what do you think about when you hear those moments? Are you a guy that holds on to the past? Are they still special to you? Or do you kind of compartmentalize and just shift it back and, you know, well, especially now that you're kind of embarking on a new career?
This, something like that, hearing that, you know, it touches certain parts of my brain that bring about emotions. You know, I'm human as far as that goes, and it's all good vibes. I just think of how awesome that was. I mean, here I was, heavyweight champion only because I had changed the entire playing field. You know what I mean? Like, had we not brought ECW back, I doubt very much that the office considered me the best foot to put forward for the company. And there's a lot of evidence to back that claim up too. But because we're bringing ECW back, which was my idea that I went to Vince with for a pay-per-view, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then it was such a success, we did it another year, and then it became a third brand. And here I am able to display my abilities the way that I want to. That be an artist ECW style, where I'm not held back, but on WWE's platform. It was like, that was the most optimistic and the happiest that I probably was through all the revolutions that I would go through when I was there. Because it was like that. Like, at first I went there and I was thinking, okay, it's going to be WWE. There's nowhere else to go. Probably make the most money here, but it's probably going to be the most Disney-fied of the – and then, boom, we're representing ECW. I was like, what?
Yeah.
I had no idea, and I was excited. And then when I had the hardcore belt, it was like almost like being in ECW in a lot of ways, the right ways to make me happy, and then, they always like pull the carpet under from you, and they always tell you that they have plans that they don't follow through with. Every single wrestler can relate to that because there's so many people pulling for all different people in these meetings that they have several times a day, and so that happens. But yeah, when ECW was back and I was able to wrestle the way that I wanted to, bringing a chair in when I wanted or things like that, it wasn't the exact same, but it was like super fun and motivating for me. And also I felt like, dude, we're making history here.
Right.
That's pretty cool.
On our channel, we have a show called Busted Open that I was telling you about earlier.
Yeah, I've been on that.
Okay. And Bully Ray, Mark Henry, Tommy Dreamer, they're the co-hosts that go along with Dave LaGreca. What I've noticed is, man, they love the business.
Yeah.
Even though, like you said, they'll share stories with some stuff that they're still pissed about, or whatever, things didn't go their way. They love the business. How about Rob Van Dam? You said you wrestle about once a month. You like it that way? You still love the business?
I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful to, to have the life that I have. My life is awesome, and I definitely have surpassed what I would have wanted to be as a kid, dreaming about being an RVD. You know what I mean? It's awesome. So I'm very grateful. When it comes to loving the business, because I see it from a different perspective, I know what that involves, and I have no problem saying that most everyone in the dressing room loves it more than I do. Mm-hmm. It's a business where you have to, in order to get into it, you have to eat, breathe, sleep wrestling, and it's a sin. It's like a behind the curtain dressing room sin to ever admit that someone loves it more than you. Like, I swear you wouldn't believe the conversations, the debates that I've heard. Like, no one loves this business more than I do. Man, that's bull, man. I love this business more than anyone. Like, seriously, and that is the mentality that you have to get into it. And even early on, I remember, like, in the 92-ish.
Japan?
No, Florida. It was before Japan, but I wrestled for Eddie Mansfield at Universal Studios. So I was on TV like 2 years into my career, with IWF, and you would do some vignettes, some interviews with like lookalike celebrities around the park. And I remember talking to Sabu around that time, and I was like, yeah, man, he's talking about maybe he can get me in Swamp Thing or Superboy. There were some, things that they were filming at that time.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is so cool. I did a vignette with this Marilyn Monroe, and Sabu got mad because he's a wrestler at the heart, and he goes, what are you? Because are you a pro wrestler or an actor? I screamed, and that probably didn't.
That was great. That was great. That was great. It came through great. Good baritone.
Anyway, that's how he felt, and that was one of the first times that I realized how different I was. I'm like, dude, I'm an opportunist.
You're a businessman.
I'm a businessman, and I noticed the difference that all these guys love being there. When I'm thinking like, I hate the locker room mentality. It's very fraternity-like, as you can imagine, right? I hate being around that. Everyone's got their own values, and I don't want my values to impeach upon yours or vice versa. But there, it's kind of like being in 5th grade again. Like, dude, what are you wearing that color shoes for? You know what I mean? Like, it's so stupid. And so all of that has always turned me off from it. But I love wrestling, but it's not as much as the other wrestlers love it, because, I'm grateful. I love, the fans and the whole life it's afforded me, but I don't want to be there. People sometimes, when wrestling is on, I don't know what I'm folding this into. I'm watching it too. Sometimes, fans will be like I'll be at a wrestling school because my girlfriend, she's like up and coming. I've already been there. I'll try to help her sometimes. And other wrestlers go, does it kill you watching wrestling and then like knowing, like wanting to be there? I'm like, are you high? Like, if I want to be there, I'll be there. Like, there's no part of me that wishes that I was on the road, hoping my flight doesn't get canceled because of the snowy weather while I'm wearing all these clothes that make me sweat indoors because it's too hot. And there's no part of me that wishes I'd be there instead of hanging out at home, relaxing, enjoying the life that RVD created for himself.
How often do you get bored?
Never. Never. Seriously, I don't remember the last time I've been bored.
Wow.
It must have been when I was a kid.
Holy shit.
He does strike me as somebody who, like, let's say Rob had plans to have breakfast with a friend, and he shows up, and that friend told him, this is the best spot in town, but when he shows up, like, it's not there. I could just almost see you going, oh, well, and just right away focusing on something else. Like, it doesn't seem like you really worry about much, you're very chill, you know what I mean? So if something just didn't go your way at that particular moment, it's just on to the next thing. Like, you can right away focus on whatever else is almost like a
I appreciate you saying that, because that's exactly what a lot of the feedback from my documentary has been. Awesome. As I said, it's inspiring how, you have these obstacles in your face that and you work your way around it and you don't let it change you. And it's like, that's exactly what I would love people to get out of it, because I'm proud of those qualities.
That's a good gear to have, Rob.
Yeah.
Yeah, so my girlfriend had a bad day today, but this was like at 5, 6 a.m. something happened. Juliet. And you waving at her?
Yeah, she's in the chat, so I have to give a nod.
But when I was driving here, she still was like, well, I asked her about it, and so it brought it back, the bad day that she was having. But I said, okay, hey, I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna hang up the phone here or whatever. But like, that's why I was saying. Whereas I think you leave it. Whatever's happening, you leave it, and you move on to the next thing. You move on to the next thing, and I'm kind of in between you two. Like, I do think I spend too much time thinking back to something that may not have gone my way or whatever, and I lose time. I lose time in my life because of it, and I shouldn't do that.
I think I'm kind of like that too.
Do you?
Yeah.
It's my main. If I had to say if I had to define what my goal is, just in being alive, is to maintain my zenful vibration in the face of life's obstacles. It really is, because I feel like whenever I feel negative energies, whether it's whether I'm stressing, fear, anxiety, I'm angry, whatever, I always regret it, and I always feel like that disconnects me from even being plugged into the universe. And I always afterwards feel like that was all for nothing. Yeah. Sometimes I worry about stuff, and then afterwards I'm like, dude, of course that worked out. Everything always works out for me.
Yeah.
The universe loves me. But here's something that you might appreciate. So we moved here Like 5 days after we moved in, we had something happen that flooded our entire main floor.
Damn.
And we're still like in boxes trying to move out. And since then, the house has been in shambles. People ripped the cabinets and everything off the walls, the refrigerator, and then they just left it because there's a 10-day waiting permit until they get the asbestos removal permit. And so the whole, like right after we moved in there, like all this happened, and right now we still got a couple weeks till it's all going to be dealt with. And it's like Katie and I both feel like, okay, you can let that ruin your day. I feel like just acknowledging that a lot of people would want to hang themselves, that's enough for me. And then we make the most of it every day. We're not even letting it ruin our mood. We're like, hey, roll with it. It's happening. It's going to be cool in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. All right, our producer wanted to ask you a couple questions.
Cool.
Go ahead, Josh. What do you have for RVD?
Josh.
Hey, RVD, man. Real cool to talk to you, man. Big fan of yours for a long time, man. So welcome.
Awesome.
Wanted to get your take. I mean, you spoke about things in the business that you like, things that you didn't really like, and you seem quite comfortable not being in it currently. So one of the WWE's top stars, Dean Ambrose, I'm not sure if you're aware, but he gave notice to WWE recently that he's going to be walking away in April, and this is, despite them offering him a new contract, even more money, a raise, and a source told PW Torch that a large part of it is because he got bored with quote-unquote like hokey shit, and he's not happy with how he's being treated. Now, you talked about you being a businessman and what you loved and what you didn't like in the business. I mean, if you're offered a raise, more money, potentially more opportunity, but you're not happy, I mean, how do you react when you hear about a wrestler, one of the top stars in the company walking away at his peak?
Dude, I'm perfectly fine with it, and we all have our own values. And I think if everybody accepted that we all have our own values, I really think if everyone accepted that and used that in a way that they saw life, that I think it would solve every conflict. I really do. Every single conflict I can think of is an inconsistency of values. From great wars to little debates to everything from like, man, I wish this red light, would be shorter to, it's like the guy that set that light thinks differently than you do. I think I say good for him, way back when I was in WCW and I was a young green kid, right? Like I had my first matches in 90, started training in 89, 92, I'm in WCW, and it was about a 5-month run. Because I left. I never gave them the contract back. They just like I did with the ECW belt.
Yeah.
Mike Graham, who was my agent, he kept saying, hey, do you got that contract? Oh, I'm sorry, I left it at home. I kept doing that. I still have the contract that they gave me. I never signed it and turned it in because I felt like I'm probably not going to want to be committed. I don't really like the way things are going. And this is 92 into like May of 93, and I was getting $150 for per show, 3 or 4 times a week, and then on TV, which was at the Center Stage in Atlanta, they would dock you $50 for being on TV, so I got $100 for that. So I'm thinking, okay, I'm going all over the place, and I'm making like $400 a week or something. I could do so much better on the independent scene because I could sell my own merchandise. Boom, boom, boom. So like I told Mike Graham, I said, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and move on. I'm giving you a couple weeks notice. He's like, what? Why? Like he couldn't believe like some young green kid would do that. And they offered me a raise. It was, I think, if I remember right, it was $25 a match more. It might have been $50. It definitely wasn't more. I think it was $25 a match more. And I said, no, I think I'm good. I'm going to go ahead and move out. Chris Benoit, who I didn't really know that well yet. I'd only met him there. I respected him, but I didn't really know him that well. He cornered me in the dressing room one day. He says, I heard that you're quitting, that you're leaving here. I said, yeah. And he got it in my face. Like he was so offended. He stuck up for the business, and he's like, do you realize how many guys are out there on the road that wish they had your job? You're on TV. You're on national TV. You're on WCW. You're stopping this for what? To go back to the Indies? Because I think you're effing stupid. And I'm like, dude, he had a guarantee. I heard he was getting $800 a week at the time, which was good money back then, but I knew he was making more than him and Regal came in the same day. No, Max Payne and Regal came in the same day. And everyone had a better deal than I did. You know what I mean? And I was young. I shouldn't have had a sweet deal. I was green as could be. But when I left WWE last time, which I think was 2007, same thing. I let my contract run out, and then I just chose not to resign because I knew I needed to leave spiritually. I just knew I needed something else in life. It's so monotonous, as you can imagine, traveling almost every single day. But Benoit came up to me on one of my last days. He goes, "Hey, Rob, I just want you to know that you know, a lot of the guys really respect you for what you're doing. You know, leaving here." It was like such a.
Did he remember the conversation from 14
I reminded
years?
him. Okay. I reminded him. I go, "Dude, I'm not saying I'm never going to come back." He goes, "No, F that. That doesn't matter." He goes, and this is kind of eerie. It kind of gives me chills when I think about this one line that he said. But he goes, "You know when it's time to leave. A lot of us don't." And he goes, "We respect you for that." And then, of course, I was like, "I don't know if you remember or not, Chris. Back in '93, you know, you told me I was stupid for leaving." I told him, and he just said, "Well, you know, some of us don't know what we're talking about." You know, something like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
Wow.
All right. So we did track
story.
down King Mo. Wow. Very great, really great story. We did track down King Mo, so we're going to chat with him about his upcoming fight versus Jiri Prochaska. Hopefully I said that right. Cool. These two will be battling for the inaugural light heavyweight title in Yokohama, Japan, at the Yokohama Arena on April 21st. And it is Ryzen FF15. King Mo joins us on the hotline. What's up, King Mo?
Man, I'm chilling, man. Hey, that story is real, man.
What's that?
That story is real. What's up? What's up?
Yeah,
you like that story.
You like your story, RVD?
Good to talk to you, King Mo. It's been a minute.
Yeah, it's been a while, man. You doing good?
I'm doing real good, man.
He's doing comedy now, Mo.
Yep. Watch my documentary Headstrong on iTunes.
All right, I'm going to peep that, man. I'm going to peep that.
Awesome.
All right. So, King Mo, I was shocked here because not that you were going to Ryzen. You've been there before, but I just figured your next fight would be at Bellator, and I always figured if Mo fights at Ryzen, it's at the end of the year. But tell me, first of all, are you still with Bellator officially? Or are you just kind of like being loaned out, or how does this work?
I'm still with Bellator. I'm just being loaned out. You know what I'm saying? Like, me and Jerry fought before, and I beat him. And I guess they trying to let him get some payback on me. You know what I'm saying? So we're gonna see what's up.
Okay, it's for the inaugural light heavyweight title. How much do these titles mean to you? You've won the Strikeforce light heavyweight title, and I vividly remember when you won it. It brought you to tears when you were in the locker room because I don't know if you were still referencing maybe coming up a little bit short on the Olympics or whatever, but it had been you had wanted to win a title and it meant a lot to you. So tell me about this one, fighting for the Ryzen light heavyweight title.
I'm gonna be real with you, like. Titles, they're cool, I guess, but I just want to get that win, dog. That's what it is. I don't want the title. I want to get that win, keep having fun, keep training hard, but I want to get that win. I could care less about the title.
Okay. All right.
Straight up.
And sticking with a little bit of the pro wrestling theme, you did that for a while. And I remember you coming back to us, I think you had gone to Ohio and immersed yourself for a few months, come back saying it was harder training than even MMA.
He did some with TNA in Orlando as well.
Yeah. What eventually what brought you to I guess not continue with pro wrestling? Was it just because it was really, really grueling on your body, or did you feel like you weren't cut out for it?
Well, I still do indie stuff, man. You know what I'm saying?
There you go.
Like honestly, the indie way is the best way to go. I feel like you can kind of control things more. It's more fun. I feel like you have a chance to network. I don't know. That's how I feel. But yeah. I could be wrong. But that's how I feel.
No, the word is getting out. Because of what Cody Rhodes and the Young Bucks have done, and saying that they're turning down contracts. Yeah, the word is getting out that if you do it right, it could be better for you on the indie scene. And I've almost always felt that way.
Kenny Omega.
Yeah.
Okay.
Especially if you've been there.
Kenny Omega turned down contract.
Especially who did? Oh yeah, that's right. Kenny Omega from who? WWE.
Yeah, well, I heard that WWE offered him like a 7-figure contract, and I heard that I offered the Young Bucks big money, and and right now everybody's like, they're building their brand up because you want yourself to be strong. Because for some reason, when you get to WWE, not to bash them, but like you see guys like Shinsuke Nakamura, I feel like his brand is terrible. AJ Styles' brand is terrible. Bobby Lashley's, I feel like they could do so much more, you know what I'm saying? But they just water it down for the general audience. Where you look at New Japan and Ring of Honor, You know, they're a little edgier. Even the indie scene, you see better matches. And, it's just that way.
Yeah. All right, King Mo, where do you wrestle indie style? What's the name of the promotion?
For right now, Blueprint Wrestling. It's an organization based out of Deerfield. We've had Flip Gordon wrestle for us, Moose, Tommy Dreamer. We've had some big names come through. Wes Briscoe, the Dudleys. You know, Devon's sons wrestled. They're actually gonna wrestle this second. I mean, this March 2nd.
Devon's sons are wrestling now.
Yeah,
twins?
They're good. They're damn good.
Awesome.
Yeah, the twins. Yeah.
Good to hear.
How often do you do it, Mo?
Huh?
How often do you do that?
I wrestle probably about four or five matches a year.
What's your favorite part? Is it the action itself, or is it like the hype up and connecting with the fans? What do you like?
Man, I'm gonna tell you something. It's gonna sound weird, but the culture. Because when I first went to OVW, like I got so much heat from a lot of wrestlers from just breaking the taboos. You know, I mean, I did things wrong. Like I'd walk in, say what's up, and not shake everybody's hand. And I'd leave like I'm out, y'all, and I wouldn't shake nobody's hand, and I'd address everybody. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like with wrestling, when you pay your dues and you put your time in, you know what I'm saying? I feel like the respect. People respect you more, especially when you stay true to the game. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. It's weird, man. You have to be in it to see it.
Okay. All right. King Mo Lawal is our guest here on the MMA Junkie Radio Show. We'll be fighting Jiri Prochaska in Ryzen FF15 on April 21st. This is for the inaugural light heavyweight title. Goes, what do you have for King Mo?
King Mo, you've had quite a few matches, not just in Ryzen, but just in Japan in general. Going back there, does it almost have like a feeling of home to you?
Sometimes. Look, the problem with Japan is when you land, it's an hour bus ride to get to Tokyo, man. That's what gets me.
From
Narita, you know what I'm saying? 'Cause they fly you in Narita all the time. I hate that. Other than that, it's cool. It's just going to the airport and, you know, leaving the airport, coming back to the airport, whatever. That's the most irritating thing about Japan, to be real with you, to me.
What about that long walk to the ring, the girls, the screaming, all that? Where does that bring you as far as emotions?
No, I love it, man, to be real with you. Like, it's more pageantry involved into it. They tell a story. You can tell it has like a little pro wrestling into it, because that's why if you look at the packages before the matches, it's like a little promo telling you here's the history between both people, and here's why they're fighting, here's what's going to happen. Check it out. That's what you see in most of the fights in Japan before every fight.
Mo, I was thinking about you the other day because I was listening to a pro wrestling show, and right after that, I was listening to a boxing show, and there were two opportunities where I go, they should talk to Mo about this. And I was thinking about how much boxing has had their resurgence, pro wrestling, MMA has gotten so big, and you're dedicated to a lot of that, like you know a lot of that. What's had to take a back seat? Have you had to cut back in any of that just to be able to flourish at your own career?
Well, it's weird because, like with boxing, I just watch it. MMA, I just watch it. Pro wrestling, I just watch it. So it's like just a natural thing for me to watch. Kickboxing, I like fighting. I like competition. I like action. So if it's cool, I'm gonna watch it, you know, and I'm gonna remember it. If it's worth remembering, I'm gonna remember it. You know what I'm saying? So that's how that's how it works for me. I don't really like flourish into it, like go all crazy into it. I just watch it. If I feel it, I just remember it.
All right, Dan, what do you have for King Mo?
Hey, King Mo. You know, a lot of directions we can go with you from pro wrestling to fighting, but my favorite thing from you is hearing you break things down. You know, for example, you were one of the first people on this show talking about Dagestan and warning us about the wrestling kind of coming from there. But speaking of wrestling, Mo, I just wanted to ask you, I kind of have this weird thing I noticed, and I don't know if this is maybe just me noticing it, maybe someone more educated like yourself can weigh in maybe with a theory, but why do we not see a lot of wrestlers who, you know, use their base to find success and get into mixed martial arts? Why is there, I would argue, a trend of a majority of wrestlers, no matter their success level, going away from it in later years. There's obviously the stereotype of, oh, he fell in love with his hands. There's obviously the wear and tear that comes from mixed martial arts and wrestling as well. What do you think it is, and why do you think that's a trend?
Well, I'll tell you it's not trends. Here's the thing, right? So when I first started wrestling, 16, I started getting better and better and better. So I became less raw and more polished. When wrestlers or whoever, boxers or kickboxers get into MMA, they're themselves, and then as time goes on, they evolve. They learn how to sprawl. They learn how to throw a jab, a body kick, a cheap. They learn how to, they learn how to throw an underhook, saying all the other stuff, inside trips. So eventually, they become MMA fighters. That's what it becomes. Once you put in the time, you become a mixed martial artist. So you just learn everything. So you just don't stick with your wrestling base. You might use it to get submission. You might use it to set your strengths. You know what I'm saying? So like as you spend time in MMA, you slowly become a mixed martial artist as a wrestler.
All right. Well, King Mo, like I say, I'm glad that you're still with Bellator. I still want to see some of them big fights versus some of them cats that are, in the heavyweight division, the light heavyweight division, and as I've been bugging you for many years, the middleweight division. But
straight up. Hey, listen, I'm 204 right now.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I'm like 185 is just right there. So 205, 185, heavyweight, whatever, man, money weight.
Got it. All right, my man. Well, for that long flight to Japan, by the time you're there, check out Headstrong with Rob Van Dam here.
Yeah, dude.
It's going to go down on. It's going to be dropped on February 19th, and I think you'll like it.
And he says that not even knowing, but I know you'll like it, and I've seen it.
Already. That's what's up.
Right on, King Mo.
All right, King Mo. Thanks for the time as
Keep
always.
crushing it, bro.
All right, man. Y'all be easy.
All right, you too. All right, there you have it. One of the best in the business, King Mo, good friend of the show. All right, let's take this break. Second hour, first break. It's MMA Junkie Radio on Fight Nation Channel 93. Stay close. We'll be right back. We got Rob Van Dam in the house.
commercial break, they were all tested for performance-enhancing drugs. George and Ghost came back clean, but Dan tested positive for Viagra. Like a lot of it. Here are the boys.
Tonight at 10:30 Eastern, the San Antonio Spurs tip off against the Portland Trail Blazers on NBA Radio Sirius 207, XM86, and streaming on your phone, or at home on Sirius XM connected devices and speakers. All right, so I got a bunch of questions here that I want to blast through. And why did I just get logged on Facebook? That's stupid. I didn't do that. I did not do that. All right.
I didn't do it.
Got a tweet from Joe from H-Town while you're trying to pull that up if you want.
I'll reserve to these right here.
Yeah, hit that up.
Okay.
At JoeDaddy85, Joe from H-Town, as Ask RVD, is he all elite? Hashtag AEW.
No, not at this time, but I am familiar with them because I get asked that question a lot.
Okay. All right, Joe, you got your answer.
How will All Elite Wrestling do? That was another question that I got to pass on.
All I can say about that is, I can only speak from experience. And, over the years, every once in a while, a new organization comes up. A new organization. Did I get enough syllables in that?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
It flew.
A new organization comes up. And they have a lot of hope, a lot of money. And then there's always rumor, the wrestlers get excited and get signed up and say they're going to start competing. These guys have health insurance. There was one that was, funded by the guy that has Major League Baseball money. And then there's, every once in a while a group comes up like this. Everyone gets all excited. And history tells me that over and over again that they always end up failing, so that's what I'm used to. I'm hopeful for AEW, and I know that a lot of fans are and excited about it. I can't say, if I had to predict something, I would just say they have to prove history wrong. I hope they do.
But if they do come to you, would you strongly consider signing with them?
Oh, it'd be all business at that point, I'd have no reason not to.
Should this be the year China is inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame?
I think so. Absolutely. I would love to see it. I always retweet it when I see the post about, she's a legend. People will always remember her more so than other female wrestlers, I would think.
Oh, yeah.
We don't follow it like we used to, but like I say, we took a trip to Phoenix and enjoyed Royal Rumble. Yeah. Charlotte Flair comes out. Everybody's wooing. She's awesome, Ronda Rousey came from our world and went out there, and she's wearing a belt. She's doing good from all accounts. But there's a young lady named Becky that's just stealing the show. Have you seen her, know much about her, or know her? And what do you attribute her popularity to? Why is she able to connect on a level where she's just smashing through the other two who are uber stars themselves?
Right. Well, what I noticed about Becky Lynch when I first saw her, I was watching the show with my girlfriend Katie Forbes, just trying to point things out or whatever. I noticed right off the bat, and I told her, I said, this girl's really good. I mean, really good. When I was in WWE, 2006, 2005, since 2001 to 2007, the female wrestlers were nowhere near on the level that they are now. Nowhere near it. They looked awkward for the most part. They weren't fighters. They were. They looked like they walked through everything 20 times and were trying to remember it, and unnatural for the most part. From my perspective as a wrestler / fighter, I just when I would watch it, I'd be okay. I mean, the girls are cute, but when it comes to them, and their credibility and stuff, it's on such a different level. Not so anymore. Now it's a great time for the women. The women, their wrestling ability is every bit up there with the guys. Everyone that you mentioned can do that. And the first time I saw Becky Lynch, she stood out to me as someone that was really good. Everything she did was so credible. And even hearing her talk, she spoke with conviction. She's got it. She's got it all. I told my girlfriend, that's the total package. And then and that was a while ago, but I'm not surprised to see that she's getting the credit she deserves.
I've noticed that when you're running the mic, there's a science to it. The pause alone, there can be a science to it because you're giving the audience a chance to react, and then you fire back. Then there's times where you almost like in boxing, how everybody talks about feint and then go. And there's times where I see someone wants to talk, and then they'll bring the mic back down, and then yet again reconnect with the audience. It's like you're pulling them in even more. When you guys go, I'm taking you back to when you were younger. When you guys trained physically, they taught you all that X's and O's of the fight game. What about when they came to mic time? Did you just have to have it, or did someone also teach you that, or how do you learn more about that?
So I think that most of it is connecting with the crowd and actually through experience being able to feel when they're going to react and when you need to give them time, you know. And the worst is when they go, what? You know, what Steve Austin started. When you, I mean, I hate that anyway. And it's almost insulting because they're not listening to what you have to say. They're making a joke out of it, which is fine, whatever. But it still is insulting to the guy talking. But what I did learn from somebody specifically telling me was that to pause. Like there's a pause at the beginning, and even more so than when you're in the ring. If you're in the back, like if me and you are hanging out sitting on the forklift drinking a beer, and the camera's gonna just show us talking like in between matches, like when they go 3, 2, 1. Go, you're on. Like we're told, and we have to be told to understand because we're in the back. We can't connect or hear anybody. That there's a pause because when they first show us, everyone's going to pop, go yay, and they don't want you to talk over that because no one's going to hear you. Yeah. So I had to be told that, you know. So they go, okay, go, you're on. You have to give an intentional break from audio, you know, before you say, you know, like. So hey George, you know what are you doing today?
Gotcha.
Yeah.
How would you compare the fear of being on stage in front of an audience to when you wrestled and you were inexperienced and maybe, I don't know if it was scary for you then, but can you compare those two fears?
I would say that wrestling was way harder, you know, and I was scared my first probably couple of years, you know, and I mean, and 10 years, like, from my generation, we said 10 years before you're a veteran. You've been wrestling 5 years, you're still green. Now they're trying to speed that up because when I was there, some of the guys like Roman Reigns, who was on top, even last time I was there in 2014 or whatever, he said he'd been wrestling 4 years. I'm like, oh my God, you're like one of the top guys here being pushed at 4 years. Like it's changed in that way so much, you know. But you know, when I first got up to do stand-up comedy, of course I was nervous. But then after learning to handle it, it's still way easier than learning to handle wrestling because there's not as much at stake at all. The worst case scenario, someone doesn't think you're funny, like so.
Our co-host is Rob Van Dam, and he's got a documentary coming out called Headstrong, where they follow him. He embarks on a life-changing journey across the country in candid and unflinching documentary, an honest look into the life of an athlete known to millions around the world as RVD. The film captures him on the road doing stand-up comedy while on tour. An unexpected roadblock paves the way for an exploration into the realities of professional wrestling. It releases on February 19th on iTunes. Pause. That's where we want you to go, is iTunes. But it's also available on Google Play and Vudu as well as Amazon. But iTunes is the spot on February 19th
right now,
and start doing the pre-order. Exactly.
Thank you.
All right, go ahead.
You started telling a story earlier where you were saying Katie read something maybe like on social media and you had to tell her, calm down. And I started thinking about that. Is that something that you had to learn throughout the years, that kind of like not attitude, well, yeah, attitude towards things, to just chill out? Or has that just kind of always been you?
No, it's definitely something that I learned over the years. Like at first, I remember even back like when I first went to ECW in '96. Did we have the internet in '96? Like if we did it just came out.
Well, maybe
yeah, barely.
You had to do a call up and it'd go.
That's when I graduated high school, and I remember it was barely coming around because I kept saying, I wish this was here 4 years.
Oh, no, were you ever on and then all of a sudden you'd get disconnected?
Yeah, somebody picked up the phone.
You have to yell at someone in your family or your roommate, hey, come on. Yeah, someone picked up the phone.
Yeah, a few years before that, so, you know, like when I was in USWA, like when I first started in '91, like we were thrilled to see our name mentioned in The Observer, David Meltzer's wrestling report, which was in print. and then mailed out to subscribers, and it'd be like, oh, cool, it says, Rob Zukowski's got some promise, and like we were really excited about that. But to compare that to the other end of the spectrum, then it's more like, like I've already argued with people over the past. There was a time period when Pro Wrestling Illustrated and Bob, anyway, they used to print stuff that was BS. And there was an article in Pro Wrestling Illustrated, the magazine, there was a phone conversation between me and Dreamer that didn't take place. And I was offended by how stupid they made me sound, because Dreamer was like, well, you're going to find out when I see you. And I was like, oh, yeah? He was like, yeah, we'll see. And so I wrote, this was the blog days of MySpace, and I wrote something on there that said, this is BS. And then they contacted me and said, you can't tell people that's BS. They'll think that what we write isn't true. I'm like, well, it's not. F you. Who are you to say that I need to agree to you? And Bob Ryder was the guy at the time. There was something that came out about my knee being injured, and Bob Ryder was writing for One Wrestling or whatever that my knee was injured, and it got out because I was. Do you remember Joe C. from Kid Rock, the little 3-foot guy? Mm-hmm. So at his funeral, I was there with a messed up knee. Somebody had to be Justin Credible or X-Pac or Jill. Had to be one of them. Let it out, and then the internet was saying that Rob Van Dam's knee is hurt, but I didn't want anybody to know because I was negotiating with WWE at the time, and so I was denying it. It was true, but I was taking a perspective. I was saying, wait, if my knee's hurt, how come I squatted 405 for 12 reps last night? And I did, but at the same time, I knew that my ACL was hurt. But for me, I came from a school where if you can work, you're not hurt. That's almost my whole career. That's what I applied. You know what I mean? So I'm not hurt if I can still work. I've always been that way, and so that's how I felt about that. But my knee was messed up, and I actually stayed for 4 years until it finally, my ACL snapped in WWE. So when I got surgery and the rehab and everything, that was on them. But actually, I first heard it in Thailand doing this movie, Black Mask 2. Slamming it on the concrete, trying to do a backflip up the wall, But that was always my my school of thought was like, I'm not hurt if I can't work, then I'm hurt,
Other than the United States, where else were you popular? Did you ever get mail or messages? Or even when you traveled, were you really popped in a certain country? Or
yeah, absolutely. You wouldn't believe like how many countries WWF goes to. Like before that, a big part of my career was in Japan, which is ignored usually when people do my bios. But from like 93 to 97, that was my main deal, wrestling for All Japan, Giant Baba. And then Baba passed away. Mrs. Baba took over, and I did a little work, but then stopped. And I've been over there for many companies since then, but, New Japan and also IWGP and WWE. But that was a big part of my career was Japan. But now, like, I have an Uber driver that picks me up, and he's like, oh my God, I don't know if you know, but you were very popular in Egypt. I get stuff like that all the time. Yeah. Egypt. But from being on tours, I know like when I went to Belgium, Brussels, like it was like an ECW crowd. Like they were all over. They loved me. It was during the Money in the Bank run. And they just knew everything, and they were so loud. That sticks out in my mind. Every once in a while, I find a pocket like that. But I'm always told, like, I get email from countries I've never heard of,
Mm-hmm. All right. We got to take our last break of the second hour. Having a blast here with RVD, our guest co-host for the day. And on February 19th, this documentary, Headstrong, will be released. You can pick it up on iTunes. In fact, you can go sign up on iTunes right now and pre-order. And you'll also be available to get it on Google Play, as well as Vudu and Amazon. But let me emphasize, it makes more sense to go to iTunes and just get pre-ordered now and take it in there. We'll be right back, folks. Don't touch that dial.
Blah. Here are those two dummies, George and Goes.
All right, it is time for the Daily Debate, and luckily, our co-host, Rob Van Dam, former WWE champion, former ECW and TNA champion, knows a little bit about our sport, especially the big name here that we're going to discuss. So we all know Gilbert Melendez is a good friend of Nick Diaz, and Gilbert Melendez, he basically says Nick Diaz is retired from MMA. What do you guys see for Diaz's fighting future? Taking into account that MMA is like other sports. People come out of retirement. Here are your choices. He stays retired. That means never fights again. He returns for one fight. There's that one payday. He wants to come back, get it, and then bounce. Remember, he hasn't fought in 4 years, guys. And the last one is he returns for more than one. So that could be 2 or 10. Those are your 3 choices. You go first, Dan.
I think he stays retired, not even takes the one. And the reason is because, and maybe because we all love Nick Diaz, and I know I'm a fan of the Diaz brothers. I love seeing him in the cage more often than not. But, I mean, let's be honest. When have we heard him come out and say it? When have he's come out and posted it? When has he even posted him working out? I think this is a lot of us, whether it's media, fans, everybody, to be honest, kind of wishing out loud. And I think because we're wishing so loudly, I think he won't come back.
Okay, I'm going to go with returns for more than one, and I'll tell you why. Because either UFC or if he goes to Bellator, someone will finally come to terms with him, get it, and then I think they'll probably give him a good matchup, you know, that he has a chance of winning, and I think he'll win it. And then he'll come back and just find a new love for it. But I don't think he can be a world champion. I just think the Kamaru Usmans and Woodleys and Covingtons and Askrens, to get through all of that, that's just too much. But he can still go out there and I think compete, against other guys. So I'm gonna be a little optimistic. How about you guys?
In regards to the UFC, I don't think we see him fight there again. But I think further down the road, maybe even in Japan, we could see something like that.
Okay. How about you, Rob? You think Nick Diaz will be back?
I do, and I agree with you because, as I've said, money talks. And I think that Nick Diaz is an extremely good athlete, from his conditioning being doing triathlon as well as MMA. The guy is in phenomenal shape, and he's a great fighter. And I think that even if he wants to stay on the couch, I don't think the business is going to let him. I think someone's going to offer him the right deal, make him want to fight again, and I think it'll happen more than once.
Yeah, there you have it. There's today's Daily Debate brought to you by the MMA Junkie Radio team and former WWE champion Rob Van Dam. This is how it broke down, by the way. 57 said stays retired. 29% said returns for one fight. And 14% said returns for more than one. So, all right. There you have it.
See.
All right, Rob, we're coming down. We're winding down here. Before we end, is there any one particular message? Because a lot of our listeners, a lot of our fans and your fans are going to get Headstrong. They're going to pre-order it on iTunes.
I sure hope
or they're going to grab it wherever they can. Available on Google Play, Amazon, Vudu. What kind of message do you hope that they get out of this? Is there anything in particular that you want them to get out of this? Or
I guess, that I would like them to see that it really is cool being RVD. I mean, I'm proud of my life, so I like to show it off. Like I said, I get a lot of love everywhere, and I want people to see that. But also, if they can apply anything to their life, hopefully that they will see and agree with me and my decisions in the respect that you make the most of every situation. That's the way to enjoy life.
All right. Well, we definitely look forward to that. And very cool for RVD to not only know who Nick Diaz is, but, knowing about the triathletes. Seems like you kind of keep an eye on MMA.
Well, obviously, we've crossed paths in a different realm because of the cannabis advocacy. We're both into that. So,
right.
Yeah, so he'll always stand up for that. But, yeah, we also have an agent that we both share.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
How about that? Are you one of them guys that has a strain named after you?
Not on any level worth talking about. Like
No.
I used to have a guy. He had the dispensary on Venice Beach, the only one. There was 2 because he opened up the Medical Kush Beach Club, and then he opened up the beach house down the street. He just played his music. He sang the Rob Van Dam, the whole effing show. That's him. Anyway, people think that Venice Beach was full of marijuana shops. It was only him, and he used to name stuff, but he would name it whatever he wants. So I kind of lost respect for the whole idea of, ooh, you know, it's a big deal because he would get whatever. He could buy Alaska Thunder F. He could buy Blue Dream, and they could rename it and say, okay, this is the Van Daminator, and he would do that. He would rename it. People would buy it there, but because that was like not a big deal, you could do that with any of it. That's always created a space between me and the actual idea of having something. But now I've seen, because I always thought like, well, so what? I've had fans say, I'm growing something, I want to name it after you. I'm like, all right, cool. Who knows about it? Just these fans in Ohio. But there have been things, you know, where the packaging is really done nice, and you can maybe control that a little bit more. You know, I think Snoop Dogg's done it. I've seen some of my friends that have done it, and I'm like, that's interesting. You know, like a really cool label,
right?
And a real professional. People would know they're getting the real thing then.
Okay, all right. Again, you can follow Rob on Twitter at @TheRealRVD. Same goes for Instagram. He's got a website. It's robvandam.com. Keep an eye for Headstrong, which drops on February 19th, and you can pre-order it on iTunes. Check for Twitter and Instagram for other spots.
Best
We're really
movie
focusing
ever.
on iTunes. Yes. Rob, welcome to Vegas.
Thanks, dude.
Really nice to run into you from time to time.
I'm going to be here every week now.
We'd love to have you back on the show sometime. Talk about everything, especially after we get to see the movie.
I'm going to come here every week, and we're going to talk about Thursdays.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
All right. Tomorrow, folks. Oh, and big thanks to King Mo for his time as well. Tomorrow we got, let's see who we got lined up. Cynthia Calvillo will be on the show, and that's it. That's all we have locked in for now. So tune in at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific for another edition of MMA Junkie Radio. For Josh, who's back east, Dan, of course, the fight analyst. Have a nice vacation, Dan. Goes RVD. I'm George. Have a nice day, and go out there and be a champion.